On this episode, we're going to take a closer look at advanced packaging, an important concept or process needed for a lot of these advanced semiconductors that are coming out right now. And we are getting some great reports that this is expected to grow at some nice, great levels this decade. To kind of take the lead in this episode, I have Billy joining me. Good afternoon, Billy. How's it going?
Good afternoon, Jose. Going well.
So Billy, I know you in the previous episode we talked about the front end side of semiconductor equipments. I think we're going to take a closer look at a different side of semiconductor equipments today. So I'll send it your way as I know you're going to explain to us what's happening in this space.
Yeah, I guess this is the season for industry reports and outlooks. Recently, there was a Future Market Insights report from the research firm Future Market Insights on advanced packaging. Um, Usually, a lot of the attention in this industry goes to the wafer front end, but with advanced chips and chip systems um, needing to extend Moore's law beyond the capabilities of the front end, advanced packaging is really picking up growth. Um, Future Market Insight says the whole advanced packaging market set to grow at a 7.2% average growth rate for the next 10 years, which is a very high growth rate to sustain over an entire decade. What's well above GDP growth. The industry set to more than double during that time. This is fueled by trends such as chiplets, which, if anyone's looked at the new AMD MI300, that is based on a bunch of basically sub chips stitched together in something called a chiplet architecture, where you manufacture a part of a processor instead of the entire thing, and then you stitch it together with other parts to make a super chip. Electric vehicles also require more advanced connections and packaging techniques as the semiconductor content grows within vehicles. And then the continued miniaturization of electronics like phones and tablets. Those have typically been the biggest markets for advanced packaging processes that are able to package tons and tons of computing power into very, very small sizes. Um, so that trend will likely continue as well. Uh, and uh, as evidence, I've mentioned AMD. TSMC just opened a brand new advanced packaging Fab 6, which will support 1 million 12-inch wafers per year, greatly expanding their capacity. At TSMC's recent annual meeting, they said it's really the advanced packaging demand that is soaring and exceeding their current capacity, even though they have um, really some excess capacity in their front end. It's the advanced packaging, um, basically after the chips are made or the chiplets are made. That's where a lot of growth is right now, and this is because you can get more power and efficiency through packaging as sort of cramming more transistors together gets harder and harder on the front end. So we can go to the next slide.
Discover the world of semiconductors without getting lost in the technical jargon. My new membership offers a perfect balance for investors looking to understand this exciting market. Using my electrical engineering knowledge and experience, I will release weekly exclusive videos ranging from quick 5-minute 101s to in-depth analysis, covering not just popular chip stocks, but aiming to explore every public semiconductor. Plus, join the private community of like-minded investors. Finally, I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
And a few before I go in here, Billy, I do want to say a
Sure.
few things here. We did hear reports that TSMC's their chip on the wafer on substrate, advanced technology packaging is also seeing a lot of pressure, not a lot of pressure, but a lot of demand from
Mhm.
NVIDIA's H100 products. And another thing is we did I kind of read about it about yesterday. We did see Intel. announced that they are also opening up assembly and testing plant in Poland, which is going to be used for advanced packaging solutions as well. So pretty interesting to see the different ways that this kind of showcase is kind of playing out. So yeah, let me just move into the next way where I see you kind of explain to us a few ways to kind of play this advanced packaging market.
Yeah, so for those looking to play this trend, there aren't too many pure plays. Two of the ones I like are Kulik and Sofa and BE Semiconductor. Um, BE Semiconductor is actually more of the pure play on the advanced packaging techniques with leading technologies. Because Kulik and Sofa is the dominant player in sort of traditional wire bonding, which is a very old technology, but is still used in a ton of electronics because it's very cheap and efficient. Basically, connecting things with copper wires. Still used in a lot of applications. Still being used in more and more applications. It's sort of like the old steady core product. Highly cyclical, however. KNS is innovating on leading hybrid bonding, thermocompression bonding, advanced packaging techniques as well. They announced record high 80 million advanced packaging revenue set for this year. Their fiscal year ends in September. That'll be about 11% of their revenue because they're a little bit more
Nice.
diversified. Again, with the traditional wire bonding, and then they also have an advanced display technology and and then their services portfolio. But that should grow over time as a percentage of their revenue because that's more of a secular growth. And their core business is very cyclical, and that's in a cyclical trough um, this year. Now, the more pure play is BE Semiconductor. That's a
Hmm.
European company. Um, they have a whole host of technologies: thermocompression, flip chip, direct lid attach, many others. They typically have a higher margin than someone like Kulik and Sofa because they're levered to the high end. Now, they're still cyclical. They still posted about a 35% revenue decline last quarter, but that was actually much less than Kulik and Sofa's revenue decline in this trough. So, the good thing is that they were able to keep high margins. They still had a 61.3% gross margin last year and a 40% operating margin in 2022. 2022 was sort of like a half good year, half terrible year as the industry went into a downturn. But you compare that with Click or Kulik and Sofa, they have a 50.3% gross margin and a 27% operating margin last year. However, the reason I own Kulik and Sofa and I don't own BE Semiconductor is because of valuation. BE currently trades at 39 times earnings. Click trades at 16 times earnings. Um, Kulik and both have a dividend. BE
Hmm.
Semiconductor pays out the vast majority of its free cash flow as a dividend, which I think is almost 3% now of the stock price, whereas Kulik and Sofa has sort of a 1 point, like a dividend in the low 1% range, but they also are doing some buybacks as well. And it's just a much cheaper stock. But I think both of these stocks stand to benefit from this trend. And before going on, I have a couple of slides from the recent BE Semiconductor presentation, and the next couple slides I thought were interesting. If you want to go to those, or unless you have some follow ups, yeah, I thought
Just a
this graphic was kind of cool.
Yeah. Just a quick thing, Billy. I think this is pretty cool. I mean, in the last episode, we talked. I want to say the last topic we were talking about kind of a market where there was some growth opportunity, but you kind of had a little bit more mature players. And I'm pretty excited because I feel like I focus a little bit more in that kind of growthy side, and I feel like this episode we're taking a closer look at maybe a market that's not too mature that can definitely head in different directions. And I do believe both these players are under a 10 billion. I do believe Click is probably like $8 billion market cap last, if I recall correctly, and Bessie is like a 3 billion market cap or something around there. I know both of them are under that 10 billion. And these two really get me excited because again, I don't own them, but if these are two I've been keeping an eye out right now as I kind of want to get a little bit more exposure in things like advanced packaging. And like you mentioned, one of them is sitting at a very nice valuation, while the other one might have a little bit more growth opportunity, but is sitting at a higher valuation. So I do enjoy both of these for different styles.
Yeah, they're both under 10 million. I think BE Semiconductors around 8 billion market cap. I think Click is three and a half, three and a
Okay.
half.
Mm-hmm.
So Click is a little smaller,
Mm-hmm.
um, but definitely has upside with some of its new technology investments. Um, but you can see how, if you think about something like the MI300 from AMD, or some of these new chips, I think the new Intel leading edge chip is also going to be built on chiplets.
Mm-hmm.
You can just see all these different elements that have to be fused together in various kinds of with various kinds of techniques in the 3D structure, a planar structure, um, and you can see how BE Semiconductors has machines for each of these different types of bonding, chip to wafer for chiplets, hybrid bonding with 3D stacking there, um, high memory bandwidth stacking, the embedded bridge die attach. That's the sort of underneath the interposers that sort of direct traffic among all of these. Wafer level molding. Oh no, and that's the interposer. The bridge is something slightly different. Um, oh, that's the other. No, it is. It's the chips to the interposer, and then the interposer to substrate is a different machine. So yeah, so if you dig into the AMD MI300, it has CPUs and GPUs on top of the interposer, and then those are all connected to the high bandwidth memory, very close. All requires these sort of advanced packaging techniques. And it's kind of interesting on the Kulik and Sofa call, analysts were kind of asking about one technique versus the other, and the CEO was like, "Look, one technology is not necessarily competing against the other technology. They can both be
Mm-hmm.
used on the same chip. They're sort of complementary technologies. It's not a question of one or the other." So I think they're asking about thermocompression bonding versus hybrid bonding. But it just goes to show you that it's not a question of either or. It's sort of like a rising tide lifts all boats with this stuff. And as advanced packaging becomes more and more mainstream, which we can get to on the next slide, I expect both of these companies to do pretty well. If you want to, yeah, this chart on the left here.
Uh, And one thing, Billy, right? I mean, I feel like we've talked about the MI300 and maybe the H100, and these are like very data centery products. But Apple, with their M2 Max and their M2 Pro, which are more consumer based
Mhm.
products, these are also using these advanced technology. So we're also kind of seeing it in the consumer side. I know in Intel, their next generation CPU processor for the computer is one that is expected to use the chiplet design, where they're going to design their CPU core themselves, but they're going to kind of outsource some of the other cores and some of the other chips to TSMC. And then they're going to finally create this ultimate packaging where they're going to be
Yeah.
using their own manufacturing devices, but they're also going to be using maybe other players like TSMC's manufacturing. And then obviously advanced packaging plays an important role there. And again, that's more on the consumer side as well, not just, again, this is not just something that's happening in the kind of data center. We're starting to see it kind of evolve into the consumer side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So this chart on the left is from the recent BE Semiconductor earnings presentation, which I would encourage everybody to look at. Um, if you look at the development there, you can see we're sort of right at the beginning of this S curve for hybrid bonding. Now, those are three different cases: a low case, a mid case, and a high case. But you can see that right now we're at the beginning stage where it's in volume production with sort of AMD, TSMC, which are their core customers. They expect hybrid bonding to be adopted for memory more and more by 2025. And then the OSATs, or the outsourced assembly and test, the giant houses that do mass production of mass devices, will follow on when the technology matures later on in the decade, and it's just going to lead to this S-shaped growth, the beginning of the S curve there. So they see a lot of promising growth ahead, depending on how quickly this technology gets adopted. First in logic, then memory, then mobile, and then subcontractors. Um, Now that's just hybrid bonding. Some of these advanced packaging techniques have already been used in mobile for a while, because you need to package things very efficiently in a small phone or tablet. However, you can see that the mix is shifting towards high performance computing, at least over the past year. You can see mobile was 43% of Bessie's revenue in 2021. It was just 28% last year, whereas computing went from 20% or 19% to 30% last year. And that's with the PC market going into a huge downturn. So that's the advanced processing, the data center stuff going on there. Automotive also gaining share as well. So this is a technology that's going to enable more and more of these big technology trends. It's starting right now, but it's really just taking off. This back end packaging growth is really just beginning to take off now, and that's evidenced by the TSMC announcement, the Intel announcement, and the new M1300 chip, which is a chiplet architecture. So this is interesting trend with some legs. There aren't too many players that are pure plays that can benefit from it, but these two companies should benefit in the years ahead.
Definitely, Billy. I appreciate it. Like I mentioned, these are two companies I don't own, but are ones I'm keeping a closer eye out. I actually just did a video on my main channel, Billy, and I've talked about both of these, how they're really catching my attention right now. So, Billy, before we close out this topic, I think this one was filled with a lot of great information, and I don't want to dilute it with too much nonsense on my end. Anything you want to kind of finish off the topic before we close it out?
No, just a lot of attention goes to the chip designers, but the front end equipment has certainly been a good place to invest the last few years, and I think some of that growth is and capital intensity is now going to be going towards the back end with packaging, and that's a little bit earlier stage. So definitely a couple of companies and a tech trend to keep an eye on.
Definitely. Thank you, Billy. I know the viewers enjoyed it. I definitely enjoy it. So I'll see you next week for another episode.
Okay, looking forward to it.